Hey everyone, welcome to the YOUnify podcast. My name is Brandyn Keating. I'm going to be your host today, and I'm also the CEO of YOUnify, which is a nonprofit organization helping you flourish and thrive. I'm super excited today to be joined by Gary Schoeniger and Hakeem Croom. These two wonderful men are doing a lot of exciting and cutting edge work on helping people have the mindset that they need to flourish and thrive. So Gary, let's start with you. You wrote a book called The Mindset Advantage. What was the driving force behind writing that book? And what's the biggest, and I think I just said it wrong, also the entrepreneurial mindset advantage. And so what was the biggest driving force behind writing that book? And what is the main myth about entrepreneurship that you'd like to dispel with it?
Yeah. Thank you, Brandyn. Thanks for having me. That book is the result of like 30 years of obsession, I should say, with trying to break down the entrepreneurial mindset as a way of thinking that can help people thrive in their life. Research for the Cisco Entrepreneur Institute. And they asked me to do a gap analysis on entrepreneurship education, and I really quickly saw that entrepreneurship is being portrayed in ways that aren't really connected to the reality, right, of what a typical entrepreneur is actually doing. And so I started interviewing entrepreneurs all over the country, but not the big name entrepreneurs. That's the key here, Brandyn. I wasn't really interested in understanding the machinations of Mark Zuckerberg's brain. I really wanted to figure out how people who have nothing create something. That was the question I was obsessed with. And, I started out on this journey. I started interviewing entrepreneurs. I didn't really know what I was doing. But over time, in the beginning, it's just a bunch of crazy stories. But over time, common and predictable patterns of underlying beliefs and values and assumptions start to come up. And the fun thing is, the entrepreneurs themselves aren't really aware of them.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Right? It's sort of a mindset. It's like this underlying, this hidden operating system that's leading to the behavior that's allowing them to thrive or to flourish in almost any set of circumstances. So that's what led me to write the book. And look, only a fool would undertake such a mindset is sort of a very amorphous thing to try to nail down. I think I did an okay job of that, but there's so much myth around entrepreneurship. I don't even know where to begin there. It's just, it's sort of the iconic figure invents something, takes big risks, venture capital. It's nothing like that.
It's not like that.
It's not like that at all.
Okay, well, we'll unpack what it is like in just a second. Hakeem, I want to bring you in. So you are working with young men in a community college setting.
Yes.
And you also are doing life coaching more broadly.
Yes.
And so tell us a little bit about how you got into that and sort of what you're up to. What are these contexts in which you're helping people with their mindsets?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Thank you again for having me, Brandyn. It's an honor. Always good to see you, Gary. But it's for me, it's been one of those things, primarily as an educator, right? So the work that I do is geared toward supporting African-American, Black students to, break through barriers academically, socially, so that they can be retained and, get their degrees and graduate on time. I got into the education field just based off of my own journey and life story. Grew up in New York City and Harlem, and my family really pushed us on education and make sure that was a value that we had as a family. And so education was always important to me and my siblings. And when I was in college, I had an internship with Columbia Teachers College, and where I worked, I taught fifth graders in Barrio, New York City. I was 20, 21 years old, it was a rough summer. Like I'm like literally partying in New York City one day, and then the next morning I'm like teaching a whole class. So you know what I mean, like that young 20-something life. But it was incredible.
That energy then,
oh yeah, that
right?
energy, that energy then. But it was incredible, and like I learned early, like that whole summer, like the students at the end of the last day of the program, they were like, Mr. Hakeem, we love you. Like, this is great. You've done so much for us. And I couldn't tell because that summer, it was like, it was a lot of work working with these students, right? But it was incredible because, you know, coming from a similar background like myself, just being able to pour in that way. And I learned then, at that time when I was in college, I was majoring in economics. So I kind of had in my mind, I wanted to go work on Wall Street, do some of this stuff and go into the finance space, maybe investment banking. But I had that internship and it really made me rethink about my impact and what was important and like what I represented and like the tools and the gifts that I was given and how can I make that impact for youth and other people around education and helping them to to break barriers the same way that I did. And so, you know, going into that same trajectory, you know, I ended up getting a deanship, assistant deanship at the alma mater I went to in Virginia. And I was there for about 5 or 6 years doing DEI work, working in housing, doing a bunch of different things in student affairs. But then, you know, I moved to California from Virginia in 2017. So, you know, being out here has been incredible. And so being able to take, you know, the education as an industry, right? There's a lot around being able, not just the ways in which students get degrees and be able to be, you know, their retention and their persistence, but it's more so about the intangible things around mindset, you know, mind, body, and spirit work that I think what I bring to the table is very unique because how I approach the work as a practitioner speaks to the intrinsic things about people, you know, commonalities, mindset, spirit. So, you know, for me, the work that I do right now is that's the crux of the work, right? And I think that's how I, as somebody in the space that I occupy, I think that's been like the heart of like how I've been able to be so impactful in my work, is being able to like really have the impact where students and folks that work with me in the space, in my program, like they love coming to the space. They love doing the work that we do. It's a love there, right? And so that's been really, really incredible. And you know, as far as the life coaching piece that I want to talk to is, What landed me there was like during the pandemic, I really thought about like how we were demystifying mental health, which I thought was incredible. That's great. I thought, okay, there's another layer to how we can support men specifically around, you know, strategy, taking actionable steps and decisive steps around like, you know, pivoting in a career or, you know, being able to work on their mindset or heal from certain things that they've experienced. We see a lot in the data right now that suggests that, you know, middle-aged men are struggling around like, you know, when it comes to manhood and masculinity and what they've, you know, how we've been socialized, what we defined as success and things like that. And so for me, given my experience, I went to an all-male high school for 2 years, a military school, then an all-male college. And I also played basketball. So I've had in my life, I've had this reinforcement of like great men, positive men, you know, first start off with my dad, my brothers, coaches, teachers. I had a lot of male figures in my life that poured into me. So going to all male schools really helped me to understand like the importance of helping other men, you know, really, really redefine manhood and positive masculinity in a way, right? And authentic masculinity in a way. And so for me, that's what kind of landed me there. I didn't really see a lot as far as like life coaching for men. And so I said, that's a space that I could occupy as something that, you know, I live in my day-to-day life, you know, as a husband, as a father. And so I wanted to give to that space and add some value there. Sure.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And so, Gary, you've become quite an expert in the area of entrepreneurial mindset and what it takes to make an entrepreneur. And you're invited to speak all over the world. You have a program that trains people all over the world. So what was your journey like to get there? One might assume that, you know, maybe you went to a fancy business school or...
No.
Tell us about young Gary. And
It wasn't that at all. So I became obsessed with the idea, like how underdogs win, like how do people have nothing? Because I was that.
Yeah.
And I want to be clear, you know, this isn't about I'm not the guy that says, oh, I'm a successful entrepreneur, so I can tell you all about entrepreneur. I'm not that guy.
But we do want to know what guy you are. So,
Right. Yeah. So, you know, a big part of it is that like most kids, I experienced the engagement cliff. 5th or 6th grade, I was getting straight A's. Teacher loved me. 8th,
And
9th.
where is this that you were growing up?
In Cleveland.
Cleveland, Ohio. Okay.
Growing up, blue-collar community. Mom stayed at home for the most part. My dad was an illustrator, didn't make any money. We lived in a house with 4 corners on it.
Yeah.
But so I was one of those kids that just 8th, 9th grade, the wheels are falling off the wagon. By 10th, 11th grade, I'm smoking dope. I'm just checked out. I came very close to dropping out.
Yeah.
Never. And I came out of the experience, I remember in algebra, 10th or 11th grade, feeling like I'm standing on the train track and I'm just watching the train car get further and further away. That was the feeling. And it brought to me a sense of shame, something wrong with me. I can't learn. I'm not getting it. So I never did. It was just such an unpleasant experience. I never considered college.
Yeah.
And, looking back now, Brandyn, I was probably suffering from modest depression.
Yeah.
And then I started self-medicating with drugs and alcohol, right out of high school, never considered college, and kind of got waylaid there. But, in the process had a bunch of, jobs that a guy with a high school diploma would have, mind-numbing minimum wage jobs. And somewhere along the way, I stumbled into an opportunity to start a business. I got a little business going, then I failed. It started to go, then I ruined it, started over again.
So it took a few tries.
It took a few tries. But I'll tell you, this is what happened, Brandyn. I remember, so I was sort of in this rebuilding phase, right? I literally took a borrowed ladder, strapped it on the roof of my car, went in wealthy neighborhoods up in Cleveland Heights, Shaker Heights, Ohio, offering to clean the leaves out of people's gutters for $100.
And they said yes.
1987. A person said yes.
One person said yes.
All it took was one, though. All it took was one.
It was, that morphed into a multi-million-dollar thing. It kept evolving and
wow,
more towards what I'm capable of being good at. And it was in that journey, literally, I was in Las Vegas at a builder's convention. My dream of all dreams was to become a home builder.
Yeah.
One day, I'm going to be a builder, right? And I opened the newspaper. There was a story in the paper. It was January of 1991. You weren't even born yet.
3. I was 3. I was going to give you some grace there.
Just saying.
Give us all a little grace, please.
I got neckties older than you, brother. But
I don't know why we're talking about numbers here.
But I opened the newspaper. There's a story about a guy that lost his job, and he didn't know how to and his wife was working 2 shifts at a local convenience store for minimum wage.
Yeah.
They're afraid of losing their home. Unemployment benefits are running out. And I looked at this story and I said, you know what? My brain has changed because of my experience in a way that I can now see opportunities everywhere. But I wasn't always like that. It wasn't always that way for me.
Yeah.
So I had an inkling of an idea that my mindset had shifted because of my entrepreneurial spirit, experience.
Yeah.
And then if I could somehow deconstruct the entrepreneurial mindset from a non-entrepreneurial mindset. I mean, I didn't have any better way to articulate at the time.
Gotcha.
But that was the experience that sort of and Brandyn, honest to God, Jung said, we don't have ideas, they have us.
Yeah.
That was my experience.
Yeah.
It was
just came into you.
It came into me.
Download.
If I could figure this out, this could be helpful to people like that. Not just people that want to start a business, but people that are languishing. Right?
Fascinating. So we're going to come back to that and unpack it.
Yeah.
Hakeem, I want to know a little bit about young Hakeem.
Oh, yeah.
And what
Most
you
definitely.
made you.
Oh, yeah.
So you mentioned that you grew up in New York.
Yes.
And then you went on this journey that involved sports and the military and education. And now you're out here in LA.
Yes.
What was young Hakeem like and how did you get on that path?
Yeah, that's a great question. The young Hakeem, I think, was, I can say, somebody who was very curious, observant, was a listener, and I think ultimately like my life story has been so like I couldn't have like created a more better script. So when I was about, and Gary knows a little bit about this, I've shared it before, but so my mom and dad, I was born in 1988. So mom and dad were struggling with like substance abuse on and off their whole adult life. And so I'm the middle of 5 kids. I have 2 older brothers. I'm not going to say their ages. I'll let them slide. I'm not going to do numbers, but 2 older brothers. I was born in 88. And I'm at the height of the crack cocaine ever, right? Yeah. So a lot of, cities and urban communities in America were, decimated by the crack era. And so my family was impacted by that. Thankfully, that I was one of the only kids in my neighborhood who had both their mother and father like married in their house, right? And so at that time, I didn't know that was a privilege. At that time, I was like, okay, mom and dad. But as I think, and in retrospect, it was a huge privilege of like how things have panned out. But I say that to say, like, when I was born 88, around like 89, my dad and my uncle got into a dispute. My uncle ended up calling like BCW on my dad. And that was like what Child Protective Services, at that time was called BCW. And so they, the BCW came to our apartment in Harlem and Polo Grounds and ended up actually like removing me from the home. And so I spent about a year or so in foster care for like a year in Brooklyn, New York. A woman came and had custody of me for about a year. And then my aunt came, my dad's sister, my Aunt Charlene, she came and got custody of me for about another like 6 months to a year while my mom and dad tried to figure it out. And they did eventually. And about a year later, I was back in Harlem with my mom and dad. So I was able to be, reintegrated with my family and my siblings and so on and so forth. So, for me, at that young age, I don't remember everything that happened, but I do know, like, when it comes like post-traumatic stress and all these different post-traumatic things and the adversities, there's also post-traumatic growth, right, that we've all been made familiar of. And so I think for me, that situation really was like the springboard for like how I started to think about how my mindset was, how I was wired. And so in elementary school, I was a pretty decent student in elementary school. I was like in tag, talented and gifted my whole elementary school time, except for 5th grade. I got kicked out in 5th grade. 4th grade, I started making fart noises in the back of the class. My teacher didn't like it with my underarm, say, you're going to go to the regular class. So I was in 5th grade, kicked out of talented and gifted at that time. But in elementary school, middle school and high school, I was kind of like a C student, right? Like, I was I played basketball. I was like the neighborhood basketball player at that time. And so I was in high school, my freshman and sophomore year, kind of just cruising through, like getting C's. I was failing math at the time, but doing whatever. But just enough to make sure I didn't get kicked off the basketball team, right? That was my thing. Like that was my thing. So my junior year, one of my closest friends, Aaron, he was in a pretty tumultuous time in his life. And so his brother was murdered, but he was in and out, trying to figure out some things with his brother, and his brother had passed, and he was in the streets, but kind of in school still. We were teammates in high school. And so for varsity basketball, he left for about 8 months, 8 months or so. And I thought that he might have got arrested. So I didn't see him. So I was kind of like, where's Aaron? Because he was kind of in the streets. So I was like, okay, like maybe he was arrested, something happened. But he actually came to our high school to visit. And he came like just bragging about what he was doing. He was like, hey, I'm at this military school in Virginia. I'm around white people. I eat every day. It's been great. I'm loving it. And I laugh at first, but I said, if that's what's happening, I want to go. I want to be there. And so he told me later, like he saw the look in my eyes, and I was serious about like, leaving New York and like, taking that jump. So, luckily he was the man of the basketball team and just doing his thing at the school. And, he told the admissions director and the coaches about me, and they ended up, offering me a scholarship to go to Fishburne Military School. So me and Dad hopped on a Greyhound bus and went down to Waynesboro, Virginia. But during that, it was like a 3-month kind of back and forth, situation of like trying to convince my dad. My dad was from Kinston, North Carolina. And at that time I was 16. My brother's ex-girlfriend, she's incredible. She was like a huge inspiration in my life. She was one of the first people I told about the opportunity to go to this military school. And so she said, we got to let Mr. Croom know. We got to let him know like this opportunity. And so she came to our projects, came upstairs and told my parents about it. My dad was like, hell no, you're not going to no military school. Like, And so at that time, I was a little bit like, "What's that about, Dad? Like, are you hating? Like, what's going on?" But now I understand that, he was from the South, so his vantage point of the South was what he remembered of, like, leaving during the Great Migration and segregation and the things that he experienced as a child. He was like, "No way, I'm letting you go down there." And so, thank goodness for my mom. She worked her magic on my dad. 2-3 days later, you know what I mean? He came back with a different kind of tone, you know what I mean? And which was great. But they say, "Hey, you can go and take this chance." And that was the sprint, that decision for me to leave. It took me a while to kind of connect it, but I thought about it as far as how I was, taken away, through the foster care system and separated from my family. And then at 16, I had to make a decision, this time on my own volition, to like leave everything I knew, like to like continue to like try to, make a better life for myself. So, I would say those are the things that kind of shaped me. I would say, but the biggest thing I want to emphasize is that for me, it always been around mindset. I always thought differently. And it was something when I was younger, even in my early 20s, having to work through as far as like how I thought different growing up in that environment of like, I had like an expectancy on my life and like knowing that I was destined for something. I had like this like rebellious hope to like make it out of my situation. And so that hunger, that insatiable hunger to want more led me to like make a decision, like going to Fishburne at 16, leaving everything I knew behind to better my life. So those are the things that really shaped me. One thing I also shared too, my dad was really big on like history and education. And so in our apartment, we had pictures of like Malcolm X and Marcus Garvey and MLK. So I had this reinforcement of like every day in our 2-bedroom apartment of like, Black excellence, Black juggernauts, folks who did a lot of great work. And so that gave me like that reinforcement of like, I can be something great too. So
something beyond your
something beyond my immediate
circumstances.
Exactly. Exactly. Frame possibilities. Yeah. Yep.
And so I want to dig into this thought of that sense of possibility and the mindset. So Gary, you went from the one ladder and the one person that said yes to, I think you said a multi-million-dollar company.
Yeah.
I suspect there were a lot of steps in between.
Yeah, a lot of heartache and failure along the way, and it was just like it kept evolving.
I think a lot of people think of these sort of unicorns or the tech billionaires when they think of what it means to be an entrepreneur. So you developed this experience yourself and this burning curiosity of what causes that mindset shift. What did you learn along the way?
Well, I can only say this now, Brandyn, but because I wasn't good in school, because like just a life of like minimum wage jobs, like what we would call like marginalized labor, was not acceptable for me. I only now realize that I sort of assumed, again, this underlying assumption that I've got to figure out how to make myself useful to other humans.
Interesting.
Like it's kind of like
how can I be useful to others? Not how can I make a lot of money, but how can I be useful to others? Yeah.
And it's like an indoor cat becomes an outdoor cat. You know what I mean? You kind of step out there. There's stuff that's going to kill you, but there's opportunity also.
Yeah.
Right? And, I was not aware of any of this at the time.
This was just sort of happening, but now you've gone back and
evolving,
studied it.
But like one of the things Hakeem and I both had in common and continue to have in common is what you would call like active hope. Like the future is going to be better than the present,
for sure.
Coupled with the belief that I have the power to make it so. And so I would the first lady hired me to clean her gutters.
Yeah.
I like would show up early and stay late. I like made sure everything was cleaned up. I walk around the house, and then people started saying like, oh, I was dressed like halfway. I had an old beater car. I'd park it like 5 houses down,
Yeah.
But people saw that I was reliable, and then they started asking me to solve other problems.
Oh, interesting.
Right?
What kinds of other problems?
Well, like, my garage door doesn't work, or my porch floor is rotted out. Can you fix that, And I'm kind of handy.
Yeah.
So I figured out how to do those things. And I'm afraid of heights. which
Ironically
Okay,
enough,
so
right?
the ladder and the gutter make perfect sense.
Well,
yeah.
what I'm trying to point out is like this isn't like gutter cleaning wasn't my jam.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was desperate. So these are sort of situational factors that are acting on me.
Yeah, so you were kind of in a desperate situation, but you saw an opportunity.
Right. But what happened is that in the wealthier neighborhood, Shaker Heights, when you want to sell your house, the city comes in, does an inspection, they give you this whole list of violations. And it took me a while to figure it out, but that's what was going on. People were saying, can you fix this? Can you fix that? And so then real estate agents started to realize that Gary's the go-to guy.
Oh.
And so that's kind of where it, evolved. And over time, I learned how to fix houses and build houses and add on to houses and redo kitchens. And, I wound up with a partner who was an architect trained in Switzerland. We were building like huge multi-million-dollar houses.
Wow.
But it's again, it's not just about my entrepreneurial journey, but it's very typical.
And that put that spark of curiosity into you, right? That experience yourself.
Well, yes, I'm glad you brought that up because that's ultimately like the dog I have in the entrepreneurial mindset fight is I stumbled into these circumstances that reignited my curiosity, right? And what I discovered pretty early on in my entrepreneurial journey, Brandyn, is that I love to learn.
Yeah.
And like
It's ironic though for somebody like as far as with the school thing, they talked about like school not being for you, but you still love to learn.
well, here I'm going to connect you
sure.
a story because, like, my mom never let us have a TV, right? Like our childhoods are similar in a lot of ways.
yeah.
My mom never let us have a TV. She'd take me to the library once a week. So people say, "Can you fix this? Can you fix that?" Like, if I didn't know how, I go to the library.
Figure it out.
On Lee Road, in Cleveland Heights.
Did your mom have a name for the TV? And back in New York, we called it the Tele-Live Vision or the Idiot
My mom
Box.
called the boob tube.
the boob tube.
There you go.
But
For
you
sure.
always said it's just passive.
Yeah.
You're not really engaged in learning.
Yeah,
so,
that's real.
And here's what I would say that tie back to human flourishing. Learning and work are supposed to be a source of joy and excitement and
Yeah.
something you lean into. I don't want to say fun. It's a little bit of a maybe the wrong word, but I think we both share
For
this.
sure.
Like,
Yeah.
and I would define Hakeem as an entrepreneurial, which is the term I like to use. You don't necessarily
Yes.
own the business. I mean, he's doing some side hustle stuff and all this in academic. I just don't like. You can be very entrepreneurial and not own the business, and you can own a business and not be entrepreneurial. Let me just be very clear about
And
that.
you make the distinction in the book between the entrepreneurial mindset and the managerial mindset, which I think is what the managerial, I think, is what most people encounter in their working lives. So
But they don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know they have. And it's like
It's an indoctrination. Like
So
a
can you
socialization.
explain to folks what's the difference? What's an entrepreneurial mindset versus a managerial mindset?
so okay. And I'll be very brief about that. First of all, mindset is sort of like the deeply held values, taken for granted assumptions, and mental models that sort of form an operating system
Okay.
that guides our behavior without conscious effort.
Gotcha.
Right? It's like mindset is to a person what culture is to a group.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so I'm talking about the underlying assumptions and values and mental models that steer our behavior. What most of us don't realize is that we've been acculturated to a managerial paradigm, right? It's sort of a remnant of the Industrial Revolution. It's very hierarchical, right? It's other directed. From the minute any of us set foot in school, it's assumed that you're going to work in an established organization. The useful thing has already been figured out by somebody else, and you're going to follow rules. You're going to, be engaged in some. It's never contemplated that you're actually going to create something useful yourself.
So people are just sort of tracked into being an implementer rather than a creator, and that curiosity gets sort of shut off. Would that be
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
100%.
And look, I want to be clear about this. So these managerial assumptions, which are rooted in an obsession with efficiency,
Optimization.
And so they tend to be like intolerant. They're error-reducing paradigms that tend to be intolerant of exploration, experimentation. Like, stop doing that.
Yeah.
Do this.
Don't think of something new. Just do that
Just
thing
do
that's
it.
right
Just
in
choose the
front of
thing
you.
I want you to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Don't improve it. Don't. Yeah.
But here's the catch. So again, let me go back to the culture mindset thing. Like, you can't understand the entrepreneurial mindset only seems enigmatic to the extent that you are steeped in managerial culture, which is
starts
focused.
right in school, you're saying,
Early.
right?
Correct.
Already when you're
Early.
in grade school.
And the data's like very clear. Like,
Yeah.
you know, a second grader is going to ask why not questions like 30
All the
times an
time.
hour. By the time they're in fifth grade, it's done.
Yeah.
Stopped. Right? You start to fit in. Like, there's no exploration. So here's what I'm trying to say. Like, we need managerial paradigms. I'm not saying out with the managerial, in with the entrepreneurial. But it's important that we recognize the extent to which managerial paradigms tend to stifle rather than stimulate creativity, adaptability, critical thinking, agency, the things that are essential to adapt and thrive in a changing world. Right? So if you
And
put
so
them-
are those the things that define the entrepreneurial mindset, the creativity, the adaptability? Say more about that for people who are listening and or watching, and this is a little bit of a new concept. What are those defining characteristics of entrepreneurial mindset?
Let me start broadly. The managerial mindset is focused on the replication and delivery of useful things.
Okay.
The entrepreneurial mindset is focused on the discovery of useful things.
The discovery of useful things.
That's the fundamental difference. But if you put them side by side, like, managerial thinking is focused on efficiency, tends to be hierarchical. There's nothing efficient about discovery at all. It's highly inefficient, right? And it's self-directed. It's not other-directed. It's horizontal. It's not hierarchical.
So in
And
other words, it's not somebody telling me to do a thing.
Yep.
It's me dreaming up a new thing.
It's engaging completely different parts of your brain.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
But like, the other important thing I want to point out is that managerial paradigms are error-reducing paradigms. Because of the focus on efficiency, there's an obsession with efficiency, which we need, but they're error-reducing paradigms, whereas like discovery of opportunities, the discovery of useful thing is an error-inducing paradigm. It requires you to try and like make lots of mistakes,
Yeah.
right?
All those sort of little failure steps you mentioned on the road between the one ladder and
Correct.
the multi-million-dollar company. It took some stumbling along the way.
Right. But it's like micro failures. It's not the Richard Branson, just
Yeah.
screw it, let's do it. It's not that.
Yeah.
And when you bring up the word entrepreneurship in polite conversation, it'll take less than 30 seconds for somebody to talk about failure. It's like, it's not that. Like, what the data show is entrepreneurs are actually more risk averse than non-entrepreneurs.
So it's micro failures.
It's
It's
micro
not the big
Yeah.
fail fast tech thing that norm that seems to be going on. It's more of smaller controlled failures. Is that right?
Correct. Correct. But here's the thing, Brandyn. Like, the managerial mindset was once sufficient.
Yeah.
You'd go to school, you get a job, you advance in your career, climb the organizational ladder, and retire, right? It's the organization man
Yeah.
kind of thinking. It's still necessary, but it's no longer sufficient.
Interesting.
We need both.
And would you say we're disproportionately tilted in the
Oh, yeah.
way towards managerial at this moment?
And that's what I'm saying. Like, the world
Yeah.
hasn't caught up. Our institutions, our individual, collective mindsets are still stuck because the industrial era managerial paradigms have now become so deeply embedded in our individual and collective conscious that we don't even know they're there.
There. Yeah.
So you have people feeling unmotivated, unengaged at work. You have the quiet quitting, all of these
of that.
things because we haven't evolved to really fully engage their potential. Is that right?
Here's something that blows my mind. You're familiar with this data, I'm sure. Like, Gallup shows that, the engagement cliff in school, Like in 5th grade, 75% of kids are engaged in learning. By 11th grade, it's 32%, 33%. It varies from year to year.
That's a lot there.
But just let me just pause for a second. In a time like when you need to learn how to learn, unlearn, and relearn constantly, what is the cost to society? The economic, the social, economic, political, psychological effect of putting kids through systems that predictably turn them off from learning.
Yeah.
Right? And then you look at the data on workforce data. It's about the same in North America. It's worse globally. But 2/3 of workers are not engaged in their work. 1 in 5 is actively disengaged, meaning hostile to the organizations.
Wow.
But when you look at an entrepreneurial, they're optimally engaged. Right? I was talking to Hakeem downstairs. He's listening to an audiobook on his way to this interview. That's optimal engagement. It's thank God it's Monday. And so let me just land the plane on this point. That is the entrepreneurial mindset advantage. When you're pursuing something that's meaningful, when you're honoring your gifts and pursuing those gifts in ways that are useful to other humans, it's thank God it's Monday. There's no difference between learning and work and play. It's all one. And that is the mindset advantage.
And so, Hakeem, bringing it down to the concrete.
Oh, yeah.
You talked about the sense of possibility that you had even as a young child. And I'm wondering if you can give a concrete example of a time when you've used, whether it's entrepreneurial mindset or a mindset practice that you've developed in your own life and it's made a difference.
Oh yeah, there's a few. I think even when I was growing up, right, in that environment, there were, different ways. I think when it comes to like social, like pressure, right, like the pressure of being in that environment at times of, fitting in rather than standing out, being a follower, right? And so one of the things that I was told early, my siblings, my 2 other brothers at a young age, is to be a leader and not a follower, right? So I'm in elementary school. I'm like 7 years old. Like they're telling me to be a leader. I'm like, lead who? Lead what? What does that even mean?
Right.
What do you mean lead?
Yeah.
But like they planted a seed in me at such a young age of like, at my young brain, I didn't really know what leadership was, but I just knew if everybody went this way, I need to go that way.
Yeah, it was making your own choices.
It was making my own choices. I didn't know the concept of leadership. I don't know what the theories
At
of
least
that, right?
Stop and think about it.
Stop and think about it. They're going this way, and what's over there? Being observant, everybody's going that way. Stop and think about it. So, growing up, there would be small things that I would do, like when it came to relationships. I was one of the people in my neighborhood that had a lot of relationships, just with my peer group and with the elders, right? So there's a way in which I had like this wisdom and mindset. I always had this relational kind of dynamic with people at a young age, being able to connect with folks from like different generations, like having the elders in my neighborhood that I would talk to, listen to, get advice from. It could be somebody that was an alcoholic, somebody that was on drugs. I would sit and listen to them, have conversations, ask them questions about life. Curiosity, right? But society would tell you that person's on crack cocaine. What can they tell you about life? There's a lot that you can learn from somebody that's
Turns
so
out,
you know what I mean, right? Whatever the case may be, or what not to do, what to think about, all those different things. The other thing was, and I told Gary this before, like even in the moments where like, I didn't have a job and needed some money when I was young, right? There was a lot of different options. You could go, folks was hustling, you was selling drugs, you were doing whatever you were doing, gambling. You at the gambling spot. For me, I went and packed bags in the morning at like 7 a.m. Right? Now, with that decision, when I was young,
What kind of bags were you packing?
Yeah, right. Grocery bags, plastic
gotcha.
Grocery bags. I know we in California, so I can't. Not the plastic bags. I know back in the day, you're packing the plastic bags. But so I would wake up, go right the first thing in the morning, 7 a.m. before folks were up, and go find me a bagger spot and pack bags all day. Now, with that decision at that time, because of the social pressure, that was a lame thing to do. It wasn't cool in the hood.
You were going the other direction.
Yeah, you go in that direction. So there's these huge glass windows while you're packing packing bags, people from the outside can see you.
Oh, man.
So your friends walking by, oh, you packing bags, like making fun of you.
Yeah.
But I'm still in there. I got my little $20 and quarters and whatever, right? So I was getting my little money to do things that way, and being able to do it a way in which I wasn't risking my future on, right? And so there was things like that. But you had to kind of cut against the grain on that, right? The peer pressure. A couple times, you know, when I was in varsity for my freshman year, we had to buy our jerseys at A. Fuller Randolph Campus High School, like $100, whatever it was. My parents didn't have the money, so I had to figure it out. So I ended up going on the train and selling candy on the train in New York City, right? I was selling candy bars and
so seeing a need that people had that wasn't met.
Seeing all those different things, right? And again, that's the social pressure of doing that. When folks see you doing it, they got like, what the heck is that? We selling candy on a train? It's like, yeah, like, so.
You know how many entrepreneurs I interviewed said they started selling candy? Go ahead. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
It's a common theme.
But they have that initial experience where like they can make something happen on their own volition.
For sure. Make something happen on their own volition. And I think that like, and what you spoke to too, Gary, about even like the fear, like you were afraid of heights, right? But you pushed past that fear, right? You didn't mention it. I want to double click on it because that's important, because I think Will Smith said it. Everything you ever wanted or imagined is on the other side of fear, right? So part of it is like thinking about like the fear and like thinking about, okay, if I lean into the fear, the life that I imagine myself will not manifest itself, right? So I got to be able to take bold chances. So for me, the entrepreneurship mindset was that I think ultimately too, like me making that decision to leave my environment, right? Take a risk, leave everything, right? Didn't care about the failure or care about what if I did fail. I didn't even think about that. I'm like, you know, if I do fail, cool, I'll end up back in Harlem where I grew up. But if this goes how I wanted to go, sky's the limit, right? And so for me, I think those things lended to, you know, to me in that entrepreneurship mindset space and kind of like that mindset. And so even now with how I've been able to be a bridge in so many different ways, like I'm the middle of 5 kids, right? So I had to learn how to negotiate between siblings and kids. And so it gave me a gift to know how to connect with people and talk to people in a particular way. And so when I got to Virginia, I'm building relationships with all types of people from different races and going from predominantly black space to predominantly white space and connecting with people from all walks of life, having friends from the Middle East to Africa to everywhere, right? And so finding commonalities. And so now that's been one of my biggest like gifts and things that I do really well is to be a bridge builder and have a really rich network, right? And be wealthy and network and people and being a bridger and a bridge connector. So those are the things that I think about when it comes to the entrepreneurship mindset. And so for me as a practitioner, especially in education, I ask different questions, right? Some of the things that we spoke to, that Gary spoke to as far as education, being in that space, I now can like see and anticipate. I can like now triage the managerial mindset at the community college level to help folks now adapt the entrepreneurship mindset.
Yeah, so tell us more about the program that you're running at the college with young men. What's that called and what's it all about? Yeah,
so the program I'm doing, it's at Victor Valley College. It's called YOUmify, and this is it's for men and women. So it's for men and women. Yeah. So this program, the one I did for men was at Dominguez Hills, but before VVC. This one is for men and women. But part of the things that I do and that we do is that we ask different questions. So right, like when you growing up in education, part of it is like, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be? Right? That's the wrong question. The question is, how do you want to live and what problems do you want to solve?
Beautiful.
Right?
Going back to that, finding a problem.
Exactly. So we're not asking kids these questions to make them think about, but it puts in their mind is to think about things they need to solve in society or with whatever it is. So you don't kind of think about problems in that way, right? And so for me, what we do is ask those questions on the onset. When a student joins our program, we have a one-on-one with me and I'm asking these type of questions. And a lot of students are kind of stumped by that question because they never heard it before. They have to really like think about like what problems I want to solve. Like, and so we start this process, like having them think deeply about the things that bring them fulfillment. What things bring you joy? What things bring you passion? What can you do all day that's like mindless stuff that like, you know, you could do for free, like you just love to do. And so those are the things that we do. As far as programmatically, we do a lot around like we're going to actually bring Gary's program to our campus as well and do entrepreneurship mindset certifications and get students like certified in that to help them unleash that for themselves. And so those are the things that we do as far as having those deeper questions and thinking about like their skill set, their mindsets, right? And kind of asking those bigger questions. So for me, I think for somebody that's been in higher ed, who has their bachelor's and master's degree, and I told Gary this before we started our podcast, was that I'm in a space where like I've been a practitioner for 13 years, right? So at this stage, a lot of folks, the default mode network, what they do is going to go get their doctorate. It's like automatic, right? And plus of the hierarchical nature of higher ed, especially at the 4-year level, like you have to get your doctorate to even get an interview, right? And so there's so many things that go into like, for where I'm at right now when it comes to the decision I'm making to use what I know as far as my gift and my skill set and say, hey, I'm not going to go get my doctorate, right? I'm not going to get my doctorate and go into more debt and give all my brilliance to an institution. I'm going to use my gifts, my skill set to create my own brand, my own business, and solve problems in this way rather than going automatically into getting another degree, right? And so I think for me, walking in that and being that walking embodiment of those things, that mindset, my students are like, well, how are you doing this? They ask a lot of questions, right? And I share a lot of information. They always get thrown back about taken aback about how I'm at the school, but I'm on podcasts, so I'm speaking here, I'm flying to Boston for this conference or doing this and that. But it's like I'm leaning into the things that are my gifts, right? And so this is the life that you can have. And it just takes shifting that mindset and thinking about problems in a different way. The other thing I'll say before I land a plane is the failure piece, right? So we're asking things around like, well, how do you perceive failure? Because what education does, like the one that we use that part of our brain is like right versus left brain thinking is like you want to avoid failure at all costs in the education. Like F is bad, right? But an entrepreneurship mindset, you have to embrace the F. The F is it's not a failure, it's a lesson.
Learning
learning
opportunity.
opportunities. So those micro failures, right? So you have to embrace that. And when you're like doing things that doesn't bring you that little bit of discomfort of like failure, then you know you're doing something that's like not really bringing the best out of you, right? And whatever it may be as far as your gift and your skill set. So for us, those are the kind of questions and things we're doing and programs and activities we're bringing into the space with our program that kind of cuts against the grain, particularly
breaking
for some
out of the
managerial thing, right? And so for me, it's kind of creating a whole new culture. And then because I'm in a space as the leader of the program that I'm doing that in real life, I get to implement it while I'm doing it and and they can see it in real time.
You're a living example.
Living example of it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Now, Gary, in your book, you outline a 5-step method for acting on opportunities. And I feel like a theme that I want to help make more concrete for the listeners and viewers is, what does this mean in the day-to-day life of people to have an entrepreneurial mindset, to maybe be able to see an opportunity where somebody else wouldn't? Can you describe a little bit more about maybe some examples where you've seen that play out, where somebody was in a circumstance where, they weren't like sitting in San Francisco with lots of money and lattes, able to like just think about what, tech magic do they want to dream up to be the next unicorn or whatever stereotype we may have in our mind, right? But people who were in really rough circumstances where they saw an opportunity where maybe most people or people who have been trained in the managerial mindset or are stuck there wouldn't. Any examples come to mind?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I could tell you stories for days.
How about for 2 minutes?
Okay. Yeah. So in the book, I talk about Teddy Moore, who was raised in the
Bronx.
Bronx. Thank you.
Yeah.
He's 11 kids. Not unlike Hakeem, he was working in the grocery store on his way to school in the morning, stopping at the barbershop on the way home. 11 kids, single mom in the Bronx, real tough, rough upbringing. In 8th grade, he dropped out of school. He got a job as a construction laborer. And long story short, he figured out how to start a cleaning business on his own with a couple $100, right? But I don't want to oversimplify this, but even your story exemplifies this. Like, what people don't realize is there are underlying assumptions that people are operating on that they don't know they're operating on. And that's the work I've done, is sort of extracted those, right? And the fundamental idea, Brandyn, is I got to figure out how to make myself useful to other humans.
Right.
And so, you got to understand how the brain works. The brain is always trying to reduce cognitive load. There's billions of bits of data flying in through your 5 senses every second.
And only more so with each passing year and new digital device, right? New app.
And your brain can handle a dozen at best. So it's filtering out almost everything. Certainly things that are non-threatening, things that are deemed non or irrelevant, right? So if your brain isn't attuned to like what other people need, I mean, that's really the secret to the entrepreneurial mindset. It's most of us are conditioned, I think,
That's fair.
to focus on what I need.
Yeah.
Like I need this. I gotta and look, I'm as guilty as that as anyone. But like it's so easy to get caught up in life. I got to pay the mortgage. I got to get the kids from soccer, or pick them up from school. I got to maybe save a little money, try to figure out vacation or whatever. Me. It's not that you're a sociopath or just there's something wrong with you, but it's a very easy trap to fall in. And the subtle underlying shift that I observed from interviewing hundreds of entrepreneurs, it's real subtle. It's focusing on what other people need.
And it sounds so simple, but it's such a game changer, right?
But that's the thing about mindset, Brandyn. It's these very subtle shifts in perspective that change everything.
So if I am a person who I'm like totally uninterested in being an entrepreneur, like I don't want to invent anything, I don't want to, like that just doesn't speak to me at all. Can this mindset help me in my life in other settings?
Well, look, first of all, the vast majority of entrepreneurs never invent anything new.
Good to know.
That's just a huge myth.
Huge
right?
myth, yeah.
And those that do make horrible entrepreneurs. Usually,
Turns out.
Right?
Yeah.
Like they're tinkerers.
Yeah.
And they come up with things, but they're not really good at bringing their ideas to life. Right? You got Orville and Wilbur, right?
Yeah.
And then you got Boeing over here. There's all this space in between. But to your question about like how do I operationalize this if I don't want to start a business per se? That's a really good question. And what I would say to anyone is like, look, let's start with this basic premise. We all live by exchanging useful things with each other, right? That's how we make our way through life.
Yep.
We got to make ourselves useful to other people. Okay, so now the question becomes, what's the useful thing, and with whom do you exchange it? Do you exchange it with one customer? And by the way, your employer's a customer. You know that, right? Right? But the future is like you can have 5 customers. You can have 3 employers. Or you can be like Hakeem, like you got a day job and you're side hustling. It's like... But the bigger point that you're getting at, Brandyn, is that when you're pursuing the things that are already interesting to you, and by the way, you didn't pick those. They're hardwired. You might like basketball because you came up in Harlem, but like if you were born in Afghanistan, it'd be soccer.
Right.
But I'm just saying. When we pursue the things that are naturally interesting to us in ways that are useful to other people, demonstrably useful. And that's what, when somebody pays you for your useful thing, they're saying this is useful. It's evidence, right? That changes everything.
And
like if we go from thank God it's Friday to thank God it's Monday.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I text the group. I text my group that I work with at VVC, like, happy momentous Monday. Like, it's momentum. That's how do we make a momentous, like, this the mindset around the day. But I was going to add, I think what's really interesting too, especially as a life coach, right? So I'm asking questions, right? That's bringing things out of people. So for that person, I would ask like, why don't you first, right? See what they say and kind of see it. And I would ask like, what messages around entrepreneurship have you been given? Or, how did you land there? And then kind of deconstruct that, right? And so I'm actually doing this in real time with my siblings, right? There's certain things like, because it's 5 of us, right? We all have certain gifts. We plan on doing something in the future, but 2 of my siblings who have a particular skill set, they're struggling to have how they think about how they can like serve more people and add value to people given their gift. And so I'm talking to them all the time about, hey, like you do this thing. Like one of my siblings, they're a hell of a cook, right? They can make great food, right? Folks always ask her for plates. I'm like, you ain't got to do is put a little flyer up, $20 a plate. You can start off like that, right? And so we talked about it, and she was like, really like, I'm hearing the words she's using, so we had to coach her through that, right? And so I think part of it is like, it's the entrepreneurship mindset is dormant for a lot of people, right? So how do you like?
But we've been conditioned out of it.
But it's been
conditioned.
conditioned.
School.
Non-entrepreneurial behavior is learned.
Is learned, right? So it's like, even with that, asking those deeper questions, but we all have a gift, right? Even if it's like not starting a business, everybody, there's so many ways you can make extra, to do things that add value. You could have a podcast. You can do whatever you want to do, right? You could do things online. There's folks that put up, they literally they could be on Amazon, like giving like criticism, or they can like be a reviewer of items on Amazon.
Something that's in line with
something
what's
that's in
calling
line.
to you.
Exactly. So there's so many things, and I think ultimately like figuring out, okay, what would you like? What do you do that's something that you do all the time? I think one of the other things too is that sometimes people think that the things they're gifted in, other people won't find interest in. Right? There's 8 billion people on this planet. There's a group of people waiting for you to rise up and walk into like that gifting, so you can be able to be useful to them.
But there's another component to what you're saying here I want to tease out when you use that opportunity.
Yeah.
Like in entrepreneurial behavior, like managerial behavior, you got to figure it all out and then act on it. And in entrepreneurial behavior, you have to act on it in order to figure it out.
And you're making those small bets that you talk about in the book.
You got to step into the arena without really knowing.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea gutter cleaning was going to turn into anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right?
And
that's what messes people up, though.
Yeah.
Because we're loath to walk down a path without assurance of an outcome. Like ambiguity intolerance is a thing, right? And there's a legion of literature showing that we'll consistently make decisions against our own self-interest in order to avoid the discomfort of ambiguity. So what I've seen in entrepreneurs and what they do and what I'm advocating people do is don't quit your day job. Don't mortgage your house. Don't drop out of school. But reappropriate some small modicum of your discretionary time, thought, effort, trying to figure out how to make yourself useful, and pay attention to how you feel when you're doing that. When someone says, wow, that's useful to me, Gary Vaynerchuk said it like this. If you live for weekends and holidays, like your shit is broken.
Yeah.
It's just, that's the thing that drives me to the human flourishing.
Absolutely.
Like we are hardwired. And I say this to students all the time, Brandyn. You showed up in this world with gifts. You didn't get to pick them. They're on the hard drive. And it's up to you to figure out how to make yourself useful to other humans with your gifts. And if you don't, you will suffer.
Yeah. And the world will be missing the gifts as well.
And the world will miss your gift, right? It's the human flourishing thing. Like, look, Deci and Ryan's work in self-determination theory has shown that autonomy, competency, and relatedness are sort of the tripod on which human flourishing rests. You need those essential ingredients. What I'm seeing is that entrepreneurs like Hakeem, entrepreneurials, unwittingly stumble into that trifecta.
And we can actually be more intentional about it, yeah?
That's what I'm saying. It's like I've kind of taken the mystery out. That's what the new book is about.
Taking the mystery about it. And that is a perfect note. Our time has flown by. So for folks who are having too much fun, for folks who are excited about this and who are looking for more detail and that mystery to be removed even further than we have in this fast hour, please check out the book, The Entrepreneurial Mindset Advantage. We'll put the link in the description below. And real quick, I'm going to ask each of you for one quick fire sentence on something that people can do as soon as they're done listening to this podcast in order to help shift their mindset. So just one sentence on that. And then quickly, something that you would like them to follow up with, or some way in which they can follow up with you. And we'll put all the links down below, but just so they know what to seek you out on.
Okay, so that's real simple. What I would do, I would say to anybody, is find a friend, take $50 and turn it into $500 in your spare time. And when you get to 500, try to get to 5,000. By the time you get to $5,000, your mind will start to evolve in a way that is change the course of your life.
And people should read the book and join the movement?
Read the book, join our global entrepreneurial mindset movement.
Brilliant. And again, we'll have links below. Hakeem, awesome. What's going on for you next, and how should people follow up with you? And your one thing they can do right after this.
So I would say ask yourself 3 questions. The first question is, who are you? The second is, who are you pretending to be? And the third question is, who are you becoming? And so it's in that becoming where you have to really dig deeper into who you are, and kind of answer some questions about the life that you want for yourself, and if you're doing the things now in the present to actually actualize that. And so that's what I'll say for that. For me, you can find me on HakeemCroom.com. That's my website. All my social media handles are there. If you know anybody that needs a life coach, of course I focus on men, but I coach couples. Life coaching is kind of broad, so I coach a wide range of people. Also, I'm a speaker, so if you need somebody to do a speaker, I work with teams and organizations as well around team dynamics, leadership, and all those types of things. So you can find me at HakeemCroom.com. And thank you again, Brandyn.
Thank you, guys. And we will have all those links down below, along with the link for the Leadership for Flourishing book. And we really do invite you, if you want to make a difference right now, also to please remember to click like and subscribe. We really do believe that it makes a difference when we can get this information to more folks. And so clicking like and subscribe helps broaden the number of people that are getting this information and learning about different ways that they can flourish and thrive and help others to do the same. So thanks again, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for everybody watching and listening.
Most definitely. Thank you, Brandyn. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're going to need like 2 hours next time.
I mean, that was